we've seen, usually you see the progression. You start seeing the guy around a lot more. He's not in the training room the whole time. He's out at practice. And since about mid last week, we started to see Isaiah Likely out at practice. The first time we saw him, he looked like he had a pretty pronounced limp. And each time we've seen him since, he's looked a little more comfortable. He was horsing around the other day with guys. I think he's getting ready to go. He's probably getting closer. But I think Sunday could be a big Charlie Kohler day. I'm really not banking on Isaiah Likely playing in the game, although we'll see tomorrow. Wednesday's always the big practice day. If he's not on the field Wednesday, no shot. But if he's on the field Wednesday, I would say outside shot.
Cole, Pat Ricard obviously hasn't practiced in a bit. Jeff, I think you had him noted at August 14th was the last time that he saw a practice appearance. And obviously, John Harbaugh has mentioned, even though tight-lipped John Harbaugh is back on the scene here getting ready for week one, he has mentioned that Pat is dealing with what he was referring to as a soft tissue setback. So we'll get Jeff's update on Pat in just a second, though, Cole. But if he can't go 42, well, I'm old enough to remember what 42 did to this Buffalo defense a year ago and what was a demolition. Really ran them out of Baltimore, really starting from the first play with Derrick Henry, 87 yards to the house. What are you expecting personnel-wise if 42 can't go coming up on Sunday?
I think it's going to really complicate things. I think they'll lean more into their 12 personnel with Charlie Kohler taking on that blocking tight end role, but I think they want that opportunity to be able to go into 22, 21, and I almost hate when they count him as a running back because he's usually almost always lined up as a fullback nowadays. Fullback snaps have really declined, but if you go back to the film, I just did it on my channel this morning. Actually, I looked at the run game last year, in Buffalo, and he played a lot. They played out of the I formation quite a bit. Probably a lot of that being that it was a snow game, wet ball, all that kind of stuff. So I mean that factors into it, but they lean heavily on him, especially when this offensive line is going to need to gel a little bit. So using Pat in pass protection is definitely going to play a role, but also just in the run game, being able to move bodies, that crunch concept that Derek took to the house for, was it 87 yards? He sprung that. Him and Andrews were two of the key blocks. Roger made a big block too. So, I mean, not having Patrick Ricard is such, it'll hurt, especially with Likely not there, because those guys do a lot more. Well, I think Ricard gets his flowers. I shouldn't say that, but Likely does a lot in the run game, especially on option concepts when they use him as a jet motion, and then he's a lead blocker for Lamar. So I think those two not being out there with what worked so well against Buffalo, if you go back to it, it was really, the power run game. And it was the option run game. Lamar Jackson scored on a touchdown in that early in the week 4 matchup, not in and they actually didn't run one option concept in the playoffs somehow. But we'll have to see what happens here. But Ricard is a big loss, like a very underrated loss, and it might be time to elevate our guy Lucas Scott if he can't play. Like I think. I don't know what you think, Jeff, but would that be in the cards? Because I think, having that fullback tight end hybrid is really important to this Todd Monken offense.
Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using the code HMA. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
Yeah, I think that would probably be the likely move if they miss if Likely and Ricard aren't able to play. You need somebody. You need somebody who can do that. Block and the other tight end. The other option is Mitchell Payton. Maybe he gets a look, but I would think if Likely and Ricard are both out, that Lucas Scott would probably be the front runner. That would be a heck of a way to make your debut for a guy who was a tackle at Army. But cool story nonetheless. And, I know he was a priority for them. There were a couple teams that expressed interest and potentially putting a waiver claim on him and never did. So they were glad to get him back. And, it wouldn't surprise me if he factors in the cards there if no Ricard. But Guys, I think if out of the three, the three guys who weren't practicing most recently, Jair Alexander, Patrick Ricard, and Isaiah Likely, I think Pat Ricard probably has the best chance to play. I think, judging by when he went down, apparently the soft tissue issue, which, sounds like it may have been a type calf strain, but I'm not ruling him out yet. The other two, I kind of would be surprised at this point if they play. Well, Alexander maybe, but Likely would be a surprise. But I think out of the three, Ricard probably has the best shot at this point.
So August 9th, right? August 9th is Jair Alexander's final practice. You have seen him off to the side, though. I think you've mentioned in back-to-back weeks now.
I haven't seen him in a while. Last week we saw him running off to the side, and obviously people were sort of, I guess he was at Louisville this past weekend to take in a game, and people were sort of analyzing his gait, when he was on the field doing some different things. But again, I mean, you got Jair Alexander for the long haul, I don't know about that one. I think we know. Yeah, there we go. I think we know his knee injury is going to be an issue all year. You're going to have to manage it. I'm just not sure you force the issue in week one with him when you have other guys ready to play.
I tend to agree with kind of that with Likely as well. Obviously I want him back, especially in September where we have these three very large matchups against Detroit, Kansas City, and Buffalo. But it's hard for this team to not prioritize being more ready in January than it is in September. That being said, obviously you need to be successful before January to get to January. But nonetheless, I think the Ravens have shown that ability to be able to win regular season football games. Look, he's moving around pretty good. I don't know, Jay-Z. I'm gonna have to get the AI analysis tool on this, and we'll get back to you with a full medical report.
Look at this.
I'm not quite sure what he's. I'm not sure quite what he's doing though. It looks like a little chest compressions, or I don't know. But
let's just say the upper body is looking mint.
Yeah. He's an interesting dude, and if he's out there, he'll be ready to play. That guy lives for this. So, Wednesday's always the big day, guys. If any of those three guys are not practicing Wednesday, John Harbaugh may not, but you might as well rule them out, especially with how many practices they've already missed. Wednesday being back gives those guys a shot. But again, Likely had surgery a month ago. I'm with you, Cole, and I also. I kind of see a little bit of a silver lining with Likely being out that I'll get to a little bit later, but it gives you an opportunity to get other players involved in the passing game and establish other players that you're going to want to establish this year. But we could talk more about that later. But, look, it would be great if they had no injury concerns heading into week one, but very few teams can say that. And I think overall the health of the roster is pretty good at the moment.
Yeah, we all know it's a war of attrition, and even though it's a small sample size, based on what Isaiah has put on tape in the month of January, he's proven he is a big game player. And another big game player last week, since the last time we were on this show live, he ain't going anywhere. He's been locked down in Baltimore. That is Kyle Hamilton, all-pro safety. He and the Ravens reached agreement on a 4-year, $100.4 million contract extension. It's the largest for a safety in NFL history. It includes $82 million guaranteed, and that surpasses the previous record of $45 million for a safety. Jeff and Schefter and everybody else all over this on the national level. And here it is. Here's the list of highest paid safeties that Kyle now finds himself atop. Names like Kirby Joseph, Antoine Winfield, Derwin James, Budda Baker, so on and so forth. Cole, you already knew that this was a priority for the team. Eric DaCosta didn't just hint at it. He made it very clear, and he got this done so that, in Kyle's words, he can just focus on football from this point forward.
Yeah, and that's really what you want to see them do, right? Like, knock these out before the season starts. It also creates a little bit of excitement, a little bit of hype, which I think is always really important. I think, negotiating with Lamar Jackson is going to become the big priority next offseason. But just based on how we've seen it go with Lamar and his contract negotiations, he just seems to negotiate on his own terms. Like it's so I kind of expected that to go down to the wire. So I'm glad they got it done with Kyle. It just kind of locks him one of those pivotal guys. I mean, if you look at the defensive depth chart and you have to point to that one guy that's going to be the centerpiece for the next little while, I think everybody is picking Kyle Hamilton. So I'm just glad it's locked in. It's crazy to look at how much higher it's coming at than some of these other guys, but he's well worth it. I'm excited that he's back. And, the big thing for Kyle Hamilton is I think the Ravens really need to find a way, and that our Darius Washington injury really stings when doing it, but getting him, out of the split safety look a little bit, getting him down into the box a bit more like we saw in 2023. If you think about it, 2023 versus 2024, less plays made, which wasn't any fault of his. He was kind of taking on that split safety role, keeping the ball in front of him, really shoring up the pass defense, which was such a problem in the first 10 weeks. So there's a ton of value there. I'm not trying to discount him, but you didn't see him moving all over the field quite like you did in 2023. And that's really where, when he gets to that level where he's going to be in the defensive player of the year conversation, it's going to be because he's all over the field, making plays all over the field. So I just hope to see them be able to get to that look again. We'll see what they're able to do with, someone like Ruben Lowry, maybe taking on some of those snaps. That might be a little early for an undrafted rookie that early in the preseason, but it is something that I'm looking for, just being able to play even single high with Starks and then being able to bring him back down into the box. I think it's a very exciting possibility that will just give Zach Orr another kind of tool in his tool belt.